Hi, everybody. Hello, everybody in the room, everybody watching at home or wherever it is you're watching. Thanks for coming out here. Melanie, thanks for coming out here.
Thank you for having me.
They're screaming for you already. Seems like you're, coming in a good spot. So you had the big New York show last night. How did everything go?
It was definitely surreal, just being home and seeing family and friends and playing for so many people. It was really awesome, and yeah, there was a lot of energy and passion last night from the people who came to the show, so it was really fun and exciting for me.
Is it different playing in New York than anywhere else?
Yeah, because I've been playing here for so long. I think, the same people have been coming to the shows, and it's just, I feel like I have like a small group of friends that's just getting bigger and bigger, which is really awesome.
How's the adjustment to how's the touring lifestyle treating you?
It's interesting. The traveling is kind of hard with creating. I'm kind of unable to write or think of music video ideas as often as I would like to, but I'm definitely working on the balance and finding a way to be able to create on the road. So,
I was gonna ask that question, but other than the obstacle of the road, I mean, are you somebody who writes all the time? Are you somebody who, left to your own devices, is always spinning stuff out?
I just love staying in my little bubble and love writing, every day, or whenever I can.
So let's go, I guess, as far back as one can go. Tell me what's the first music that you remember hearing? What's the first thing that made an impression on you?
I mean, my dad played all sorts of different kinds of music, but he really loved playing a lot of old school hip hop, and he also played artists like Brandy and I don't know. I also, when I was younger, I loved a lot of the pop female singers and artists, and but as I got older, I think my music taste changed a little bit, and right now, I mean, I listen to all sorts of stuff, but I'm more focused on writing my own music now, so yeah.
Growing up with listening to your dad's hip hop makes me feel older than I would like to feel. This is where we are now. And when and how did you start to think about this as something to give your life to? When did it start to come into focus that music was going to be the thing?
Well, I always loved singing since I was really small, and I wrote a bunch of poetry growing up, and then when I was 14, I taught myself how to play guitar just so I could write songs because I really wanted to. So I kind of just turned the poems into little songs and started writing that way. So I guess when I was maybe 14, 15 is when I really was getting really into it and started thinking about it as an actual career rather than just a hobby.
Tell me the moving from writing poems, from writing words to thinking of that as songs, as music. I mean, was there a progression in that, shifting that into a different kind of focus?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was younger, I just wrote poems, really silly poems about really just anything that I could think of. I loved, and I still love, lemonade, so I wrote a poem about lemonade and how much I love it. And that was when I was really little, though.
Read that poem.
And if I didn't like a teacher, I would write. I wrote a poem once about me being upset at my teacher and hoping that she steps on gum or something funny like that. I don't really. That was but yeah, it's definitely different writing songs, and but it's similar in a lot of ways. I love focusing on the lyrical content and making sure that the music is telling a story from beginning to end.
So let's talk a bit about the record and about tell me about sort of finding the theme, the character, the sort of through line for what became Crybaby.
Well, I was really inspired by toy sounds, and I think that's kind of what started everything. And then, just in my own personal life, like I love collecting vintage toys from the 50s and 60s, and love pastel colors and a lot of vintage, like kind of baby doll clothing and stuff like that. And like, so it's interesting because I feel like it kind of reflects in the music and also the art. But with Crybaby, really Crybaby was this nickname that I took as an insult when I was a kid, because I took everything super personally and was very, very emotional, and still am. And I always looked at that as like a weakness, just because that's how everyone looks at like being emotional or being sad. It's kind of like you're being weak. But eventually I realized that being emotional or overly emotional, or whatever you want to call it, can be something that is not a bad thing, but a good thing. Like I'm, in touch with my emotions, and I think that writing the album really helped me kind of feel a little bit more confident in myself and who I am. And so yeah, but the album was very inspired by toy sounds, and so that's kind of like that was like the start of it all. And then I really wanted to tell a story from beginning to end, and basically like after writing all the songs, and what I would do, like the writing process was really just listing like a bunch of titles that related to a childhood theme or whatever, and I would try to add an adult situation to give it the contrast between like the light and the dark. And so that was kind of the process every time with writing. And then and I was writing about personal experiences, and some things are just made up stories that it's really fun for me, actually. It's like one of my favorite things to do, is kind of just add a little bit of whimsy and fantasy into the music by like making up stories like like in Crybaby's story, she gets kidnapped by the big bad wolf, and she escapes by poisoning him with milk and cookies. And that didn't happen to me.
Didn't happen to
No.
There's not a documentary.
But it's just fun to really explore ideas like that, and to kind of just really have fun. So.
But you knew going in that it would be a full theme and a full story. I mean, that was where you started.
Yeah, the theme was really, in the beginning, the theme wasn't like the story itself, because I pieced that together after writing all the songs. I kind of, with the track list, figuring out the track list is when I really started to see like a beginning to end, which was interesting. But yeah, it was definitely, the whole idea of the album was for it to be childhood themed, but to have an adult message and mature like content.
I mean, that's to go in with titles or ideas or whatever it was that was going to move it through, and then write to those ideas it's kind of an inside out way to do that. Was that a harder challenge? I mean, was it could be good that you set yourself sort of parameters to work with and do that, or you could go crazy saying, but that's not what this song wants to be. It wants to be something else.
Yeah, I mean, whenever the song is turning into something else, I kind of let it turn into something else, and then it turns into a different idea. But I definitely always start out with like a title, and it has to be super visual for me to feel connected to it for some reason. It's like really hard for me to write or finish writing a song if I can't see a music video in my head while writing it. So that's really important to me.
Was there one song or even one moment in a song where you could sort of feel it where you could feel it come into focus? I mean, was there something where you thought like, oh, okay, now I can see what this is actually gonna turn into?
Yeah, I mean, like it's different for every song, but I definitely have that kind of like moment, during like the beginning, definitely the very beginning, when I'm like done with like first verse or something, going into like a pre-chorus or whatever, I'll just, I'll definitely know by then for sure.
But for sort of the big picture of the album and the whole project, was there something that was kind of a turning point for you where you could feel what this whole thing might add up to?
I don't know.
Or was it just
was
knocking out
kind of-
each, you know?
It was just really just focusing on like what I was doing in the moment, and then eventually I saw it all together as what it is now.
And then tell me the sound of the record, which is obviously a distinctive and very, intentional thing that you're going for. I mean, you said you started from these toy sounds, but how do you take something like that, the idea of toy sounds, and then expand that out to be, 45 minutes of a record? I mean, how does that seed kind of continue to grow through these songs for you?
I'm not really sure how it happened, but it's interesting because not every song has toy piano in them, but they do all feel connected in a strange way. And I think that that's probably just from the visual and like the concepts and the themes. And to be honest, it's interesting because, whenever people ask me like how would you describe the sound of, the album, I can't ever answer that question because for some reason I'm just so focused on the visual when writing it, and like the melodies and the the actual music is like, it's just like, I don't know, I've always wanted to feel connected to the visual, and I'm always thinking about the visual first, so it's a little.
Well, tell me that visual, as you said, you have these references and these things that you like and these things that you draw from, but how did you kind of refine that into what your own style tends to be, and then for video, for stage? I mean, how do you kind of take all of that and turn that into an idea and an aesthetic that you're making stuff out of?
I don't really know. I don't know.
But it comes first. I mean, you're saying that's the...
the visuals always first. Yeah.
And so tell me about as then the visual pieces of that as the videos. Well, I guess first that becomes then the video part. You have that's all fully in your head at the beginning, and then it's just about making that come true?
Yeah, I mean, my ideas definitely change over time. I wrote all of these songs so long ago, and I'm just now actually sitting down and writing, the full video treatments for, the rest of the songs on the album, and also the ones that I already put out, like Crybaby recently. For that one, was later inspired a little bit more by this movie called Alice, and it's from the 70s, I think, and it's really awesome. It's all stop motion and super creepy and really cool. But it was just super inspirational for me on tour. I was watching it, and I thought that there's this one scene where she's a little girl, and she's in a small room, and she just starts crying, and but it's interesting because you could just see the puddles coming from her eyes and stuff, and it looks so eerie and weird, and she fills up the room. So that was the inspiration for the music video. But yeah, things like that, I'll think of ideas here and there or get inspired by certain things that I will, incorporate later on. But it definitely is kind of the same idea from when I was writing it and originally what I saw in my head.
And then how about taking all of that and then putting it on a stage? Let's bring it to life in a different way.
Well, more recently I've been able to do that just because of, production and stuff with the lights and the crib now. The stage setup is, it's supposed to feel like Crybaby's nursery. That's the vibe that I wanted to give off for the whole tour. So yeah, that was really just the inspiration for it, was just wanting to make it feel like you were in her world and in her room. So.
And is it, as fun, more fun? I mean, what's the different challenge of doing that? Having done it through getting the song made, in some cases, having done it through the video or starting the process of the video and then putting it live in front of people. What's the different challenge of that step?
I mean, I don't know. I think with music videos, obviously it's easier to like, for stage, like, you know, if there's like one set, I can't like change sets and like do as much as I would like to do. But I don't know, like I just like want to always make sure that I'm telling the story of the album live from beginning to end always, and like, you know, I want, you know, the viewer or whoever's at the show to like feel like they're really in the world, you know, in Crybaby's world. So I don't know, yeah.
Are there any of the songs that the response has surprised you? Anything that, especially on a stage where you can see it and feel it, that either went somewhere you didn't expect it to go, or, you know, bigger or different emotion than what you might have thought?
I mean, Pity Party, playing that song at shows is like incredible just because everyone screams at the scream, and it's like the craziest feeling hearing like a room full of, you know, people scream. It's the weirdest thing ever, but also really cool. So yeah, I think, yeah, Pity Party. Yeah. And obviously you're in the middle of this one and will be in the middle of this one for a while and keep growing and keep going and all of that. But as you think about going off to try to write the next one, starting into the next thing, do you think of it as it'll be an extension of this character in this story, or do you want to be in a place where each one is kind of its own chapter, or how do you think about how this is going to roll out to the future? So my plan,
Master plan.
my plan is to have all of the albums connect and tell a bigger story at the end, and I would love to, like, my biggest, you know, dream is to make like a movie telling the full story from beginning to the last album with Tim Burton. He's literally my favorite, so that's like my biggest dream. But yeah, like,
not a surprise.
For the next album though, I've already started writing it, but it's in the very beginning, early process. But I want it to be, I want Crybaby to remain a character in this kind of world, but I want it to be less about her family life and about her love life, and I want it to be more about her really just telling the story of like different characters in this one place in the town that she lives in. So the next album is about this one place in this town, and she's narrating, kind of just like going through each character and like their stories. So.
And do you have that mapped out, you know,
not fully.
Further down the road, or you're taking it each step?
Each step, yeah.
Step as they come. So I don't usually these questions are a little silly to talk about, you know, influences and inspirations, but I'm curious, since this is such a, you know, specific and focused sort of a creative path you're on, is there anybody that you look at and think they've done it the right way? Is there anybody whose career you look at and think,
like,
man, that's the way you go out and do this, musical or not musical?
Well, I mean, Mark Ryden is my favorite visual artist, and he's a huge inspiration for the album and just me and my life. But yeah, I mean, his artwork is really incredible, and I really respect him as an artist, so I'd say Mark Ryden.
And musicians, again, not in terms of influence necessarily, but just as somebody who's kind of set a roadmap a little bit.
I'd say Bjork.
That answer makes sense. That I can see. That one will work. Okay. Well, thank you. What I see is we're at the end of the time for us up here, so we're going to go to questions from you guys for a few minutes. we're starting in here or from out there? We're starting
Melanie,
right there.
Thanks for coming. I love your music and your style. And Dollhouse, for my group of friends, has almost become a catchphrase. You know, we'll be out, a couple will be fighting, and then we see them post a picture on Instagram, and it's like, Dollhouse. How did you come up with that concept? I just love it. And, you know, I'm not trying to reinterpret, maybe if that's not what you meant, I'm not saying that is what it means, but I just love the idea of how perfect the Dollhouse looks or how perfect people's lives could look when they're not, and where did that kind of come from?
I mean, really just, I think that we all can kind of relate to that. I mean, we all have, you know, things that we keep to ourselves and we bottle up and we don't necessarily, like, post online or, you know, so nobody really knows that part of our lives, but, you know, there's always, like, this, like, perfect, you know, like, picture on the outside, so I really just wanted to, you know, focus on that.
Hey, Melanie, TGIF. It's true, it's Friday. Come on, guys. First and foremost, I always appreciate when somebody puts an outfit together that's a little bit different from what everybody else is doing. It's very easy to blend in, but to make a statement, I think that deserves some props, so respect.
Thank you.
Is there a particular way that you put a certain style together for yourself? Do you wake up one day and go, okay, this is something I want to do, or does it kind of random?
It's always random, but I love vintage clothing. I really do. Like, this isn't vintage, but this underneath is, and this is, and the hat is, and the boots are. But yeah, I don't know. And I love pastel colors, so it's really just whatever catches my eye. I'll just throw it on, have fun.
Hey, Melanie. My question is what is your inspiration for your hair? Like, what, what like inspired you to do it?
I hope we've got the reverse angle into the audience on it.
Cruella de Vil, when I was 16, actually, when I was 16, my mom never let me bleach my hair. So I don't know, I wanted to do it anyway, and I was watching 101 Dalmatians, and I told my mom I would dye my hair like Cruella de Vil, and she was like, no, you're not. And I was like, yeah, I am. And then I called her while I was getting done. I was like, I'm just letting you know, like, I'm coming home with half of my head bleached. I hope that's cool. She was just like, she's like, I don't believe you. And then she didn't believe me, and then I came home and she didn't talk to me for like a week. But I mean, she likes it now, but it was just funny in the moment. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hi there.
Hi.
You're inspired by Mark Ryden and Tim Burton and so many other amazing surreal artists. How does it feel knowing that you are inspiring others with your work?
I mean, it's crazy because I literally, you know, I don't really know that to its full extent. Like, I don't really know exactly, you know, who I'm inspiring, so I don't really think about things like that. But, I mean, it is really special. I definitely, you know, encourage everyone to create, and if they're inspired, you know, by me, I think that's really cool and awesome.
Thank you.
Is it a thing that you hear, you know, as you're out in the world and doing stuff? I mean, is this this sense that you have an impact,
Yeah,
and that people are taking something from what it is that you're doing? Is this did you expect to be hearing that, and how is it to be?
No, it's weird. I'm literally just like, I don't, you know, necessarily understand it because I obviously, you know, think of myself differently than someone else would think of me. You know, so I don't really know. I didn't expect it at all, but it is really cool, you know, meeting people and hearing how my music has helped them in some way or another, or inspired them to create something. I think that's really cool.
We can do one more right there.
Hey, you performed great last night.
Thank you.
I'm just curious if if your intentions were to make another soap video, like you had the first one, but then you made another one. Did you plan to do that?
Okay, so if you want to know the actual story, originally we were supposed to shoot a soap video, and then it didn't happen, and we couldn't get it to happen in the beginning. So I just decided to take it into my own hands and kind of just have some friends over at the hotel and like make a visualizer for it until I knew it was time to actually make a full like soap video. And also like the soap and Training Wheels, the two songs together in a video, I think I really just wanted to make a double, music video with those two. And there's a couple others in the album that I want to make another double feature for too, but yeah.
Everybody, thank you in the room. Thank you for watching at home. Thank you, Melanie Martinez.
Thank you.
Crybaby, get it, love it, and we'll see you soon.